Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's webinar on our Purchase and Expense Management Power App for GP, presented by myself, Dan Booth, Product Manager here at m-hance. Just a bit of a welcoming introduction, a little bit about me, first of all. There's my mugshot. I joined m-hance about 8 years ago as systems accountant. So my background is accountancy, really through qualified senior accountant, but I quite like and part of my passion when I was working within the finance function is around streamlining processes and trying to make processes as efficient as possible, as automated as possible as well, both from a system point of view, but also making sure that there's no manual processes in an organisation. There's nothing worse than duplicating data than having lots of paper flying around. And obviously over the last 18, 24 months, that's become even more prominent, that more paper-based and manual processes have been very difficult to manage with the working from home being brought on as quickly and things like that. So I came in reporting, looking at that as an organisation, and when a product role opened up within the team to use my skills to look at GP, to look at the other finance systems that we sell here at m-hance, it seemed a natural progression because I've worked in a number of industries, understand challenges, and have the sort of mindset to really help m-hance help our customer base as well. So that was really interesting, which is why I'm now in the product role as product manager. And hopefully over the next sort of 40 minutes ago, so you can see how we use Microsoft technology here at m-hance and how our understanding of challenges that can form the product that you're going to see today and how that interacts with GP seamlessly and things like that. Couple of bits of housekeeping. So during the session, all the lines will be set to mute to avoid any unnecessary noise interference that you always get on calls at present. And at any point during the presentation, it's quite a full presentation. So at any point, please feel free to type in questions into the chat panel. And what I'll do, I'll answer them offline afterwards. We're finding through these webinars that most questions are organisational specific, really. So what I'll do, we can get to the end of the session, I'll contact you straight away afterwards with answering any questions that you have. Also, as part of the final slide, my contact details will be on that, my email address. Please feel free to email me to the email address after the session, and we can engage in conversation after the session about that as well. And the contact details, as I say, they will be provided on the last slide and will be kept on screen for a while. Okay, so I don't want to do that by PowerPoint, but I do think there are some slides that I do want to show just to get across what our product does and what benefits it does. So we'll have an overview, quick slide on how it's been built using Microsoft technology, benefits both operational and, I come from a finance background. Most people on the call who were registered as finance people, so it's always nice to have a slide showing the benefits for finance teams as well. And then we'll get into the product itself, looking at what it does, how it does, and we'll go into the product, and we'll also see how the transactions look in GP when they come across as well. P&E, the overview slide. This is just a quick sort of highlights and bullet points of the functionality we've got. So our Purchase and Expense Management Power App for GP, fully cloud-based. So I'm demoing on the web today, but you get the same functionality on tablet, mobile devices as well. So as long as you've got a connection, you can access the system, you can approve transactions, you can enter transactions, submit transactions, things like that. It works with purchase order requisition, so getting a purchase order approved. It works with purchase invoice, so any non-purchase order related invoices we can put through, you can attach the documents, you can send the invoice out for approval. It works with expenses, and it works with credit card or corporate card approvals as well at line level. So it is quite a comprehensive product, and it's all about the governance around approvals. We have around that we have extensive workflows around the approval. So we can have an approval hierarchy for each document type. You can have multi-levels in your approval hierarchy within your organisation, with different values and different approvers for a purchase rec or a invoice than an expense, for example, because obviously You know, your invoices, your order requisitions are going to be higher values than your expenses. We have the option to have a finance approval step per document type as well. So, for example, and I use expenses about this, and I use VAT on hot and cold food as an example. You've got an expense going in from somebody in marketing. That then can go through an approval routine of the marketing manager, the marketing director, your sales and marketing director, and all the way through as sort of a management approval. But at the end of it, not many people within that chain would know what the correct VAT treatment is on hot and cold food, for example. So you do have the ability to have a finance approval step at the very, very end. So after the management approval, a finance approval step where it can go to an individual or a group of people from finance who can check the transactions, who can amend the VAT allocation, VAT rates, anything like that. They can amend the GL account. So if you're not VAT registered, you can still have this finance step in, double check everything, and have the final say on the approval of that transaction as a separate step to the management approval, which a lot of our customers decide to have, especially on the expenses, as I said before. We also do document storage, so we can attach documents and attach documents against a record. So for expenses, you can put receipts. For order requisitions, you can put any backup you've got. If you were using the purchase invoice approval system, you can actually attach the invoice so everybody can see it through that approval route. And two things to note there. So we interact with SharePoint, which allows users to attach any document type. You don't have to be great users of SharePoint. You just need to have a SharePoint site available that we will then, all the images get stored in that SharePoint site. And I will show you that throughout the demonstration. But what we've also got, if you don't have SharePoint, it doesn't rule you out from this product. What it does do is limit the attachments you can attach to the documents. But if you don't have SharePoint, you can upload images or PDFs into the system throughout the approval as well. So if you don't use SharePoint, don't think, oh, I can't use it. You do have the ability to attach images. So from your phone, you take an image on your phone, PDF documents and things like that for non-SharePoint users. So what our system does, and again, over the last 18 months, this is something that's really appealed to our customers, it enables paperless end-to-end process. It also means, because we use the Microsoft technology to push data from the system into GP, it's live integration to GP on a fully approved transaction. So you don't need to export it into Excel, copy and paste it into, you don't need any third-party integration, you don't need anything like that. No connectors. It is live integration to GP. So the minute a transaction is fully approved through the system, management approval, finance approval, however you set that up, on fully approved status, workflow triggers and pushes that transaction into GP, which I will show you very shortly. And at the end of it, you get the full reporting suite by Power BI. So you've got all the analytics that you need. You can do number of trends, you can see by individual, and we'll go through the reports as well, but you've got the full analytics of the system by the Power BI report that comes with the product as well. And just to sort of give understanding of how this is built, we, as a Microsoft reseller, we're not rocket scientists here at m-hance. We build functional products that assist and make operations and efficiencies in organization. So our system, the P&E management for GP, is built on a Power App. We use Power Automate to push and pull information from GP, and we use Power BI to do the analytics on it. So when you think about that, everything is within the Microsoft stack. All this, for those who are technical, is within the Power Platform. It's within a product set that Microsoft have provided to enable what we are doing. So we're not pulling in data using different things. This is all within the Microsoft stack, fully managed as a solution by m-hance, by Microsoft technology. And what are the benefits of it? Well, you'll see shortly, it's very easy to use. Yeah, we have customers, and part of our understanding of building this product was you're going to have people requesting information and initiating documents who potentially are not finance people. So we can't make this complicated. and you'll see it's very, very easy to use. One of, and I'm sort of looking at the bullet points on there, I'm not going to go through everything individually, but it accesses multi-company, it's very easy to flip between the two. One of them, we've got out of office, all that sort of approval and proxy approvals and things like that. I think one of the biggest things to say, compared to some of our competitors within the marketplace, there's a lot of products out there that do similar things. But the way we built this, you don't have a massive, long and drawn out sort of build of the system, because we pull data in from GP. So the core data, your suppliers, your GL accounts, your items, your VAT codes, your currencies in the system. All that is pulled in from GP. So you're not filling out template after template. The governance of the data is your data that's governed in GP. So if you add a new supplier, you have to add it in GP and it will appear in the app. You're not having to add it in GP and add it into the app as well. There's workflows continually running on a loop that update the information based on your governance in GP. So you manage the core structure of the data in GP. We ask you guys for, your approval hierarchy, what modules you want people to give access to. And you'll see just sort of all the information we need from you is user-based information. All the core structure we just pull in from GP, because that's where your governance is and that's where the logic is. But we also do, automated reminders. We have a copy function and all that sort of things that really make transactional entry for all department users across the organisation, non-finance, but any sort of different levels of technical ability users so easy to use, and that's a massive benefit of using P&E. To the finance teams, we go further. So we've got the Power BI report that allows you to see updates, supplier, GL codes, items, different modules. There's one point of data entry with regards to this. So as I said before, you've got non-financial people. You don't need to give users of the app access to GP. They can work solely in the app. So you can keep GP for the people who need to be in GP. We've gone through the duplication of entry. One of the good things that our app does as well, it only pushes fully approved transactions into GP. So all the sort of in-progress transactions are all within the app. They don't touch GP. And we can use Power BI reports, and it says at the bottom there, the reports and the analytics that you got, we can filter on awaiting approval, save. So some customers use our system as the old sort of type of invoice register. Everything goes into the system. It can go out for approval to different people. You close your purchase ledger at the month end, go to the Power BI report, filter it on saved or awaiting approval, and the list comes out, which is your accrual for a month end. Export it into Excel, pump it into GP. Really, really quick compared to previous ways of that customers doing that sort of stuff. And that means your GP system's clean. It really does mean that you can push, we can pull, all the data is where it needs to be, and you've not got paper out in organisations. Everything is managed within the app and only pushed to GP when it's fully approved. And you will see that shortly. In fact, you'll see it now. I probably won't be that back. I do think it's worth running through a couple of the sort of build things first of all, and then getting into the app itself. So, as I mentioned, for a start, we ask from customers very limited information actually, because the core data is pulled from GP. We need to know who your users are, obviously. We need to know what modules they've got access to. So would they just be an expense user, for example? Do you need them to just have access to invoices? Do they need requisitions? We have a credit card module. Do they need to do that? So if I go into my user, and let's have a look on our dev system what our user is in the P&E management tab. Again, I'll go back to it. We're not rocket scientists. It's just a yes or no with regards to what modules people have got. We can link here as well. So this is where you link in the GP companies that user may have access to. So you might have some users who only need access to one company. You may have some that need access to 2 or 3. We can add that in. For expenses, you can link the user to a GP company. So this here, my user is linked to, I just click on that, it's pulling the data across, and it's linking to the record and the filtered records in GP. That's it. There you go. You can see here, that's the ERP company. That's what default posting routes are done to. That is all from the data that's pulled across as standard from GP in a separate system that we don't have to load. We've got all this, so you can link. So when I go in and put an expense through, my vendor, my supplier account from GP is already there. We can got the proxy approvers. So if I'm absent and I'm an approver, who in our system can assume my approval rights during that time. We've got these users. You know, absence dates in, that's from a previous demo, they're there, but you've got purchase approval chain. So how much can I approve on invoices, first of all? So if an invoice comes to me for approval, I can approve up to £20,000. If it's for £20,001, it then goes through this approval chain. So it will go to users. And you can have as many users in that approval chain as you want in purchases. So going back to the marketing person, you might have a marketing assistant putting through a purchase order requisition, for example. They might not have an approval limit, they can't approve anything, but you could have a manager who could approve up to £1,000, a senior manager up to 5,000, the director up to 10,000, sales and marketing director up to 100 grand. You could have multi-level approvals based on value within this as well, and the same for expenses. So you know, you can see we are just needing user-based information from you guys. We have approval types, so this is where we would say, do you want a finance approval step on? Yes, we've got it on expenses. No, we don't on purchases in this demo system. But we also do, because it's triggering emails and notifications, so if I get something to me for approval, I get an email saying you've got a transaction to approve. We've also built into the system email follow-ups and reminders as well. So if no action's taken on an expense in 3 days, an email will go out 72 hours on the dot after the initial email saying no action has been taken, please, this has now been outstanding for this long, please do. And then every 72 hours after. On purchases, we have 24 hours and then every 40 hours. You can build that in, that could be whatever you wanted it to be. And we have other things. So we've got sort of expense limits for expense types. So we can go in and we can say, against this code, the limit for your expenses is £50. But we go even further than that on expenses. So instead of having a full list of every chart of account code, we have this thing called friendly expense categories. So for non-finance users, it goes back to that statement again. You can have a name, station, like category linked to a GL account with an expense limit against that. And I can show you that. We'll show you that as part of the demo. But what I'm trying to get across here with regards to this setup is it's user-based setup. It's who's got access to what and what values do you want to give as part of any approvals and things. All the static core data, your governance is still all done in GP. So you're not managing 2 systems here with regards to your suppliers, your GL accounts, your VAT codes and things like that. And that's the admin setup. But let's get into the app itself. This is what the app looks like. If you've only got requisitions, you'll just see one icon. Just as a note, please ignore receivings at present. This is something we are looking at putting into a future version as an upgrade. So just please ignore that at present. But we've got the 4 modules here that are part of the process: requisitions, purchase orders, invoices, expenses, and credit card. So you get a nice little home page. You can see your transactions in progress as a user. So if I go into requisitions, I can see there's one out there already. That was the date, who it's with. If I click on requisitions section, I get some nice little views. So I see what the requisition were, previous ones, the last 10 created. I see the order number from GP writes back into the app. Got all this information here. I can see process, rejected, saved. And I can copy, search and copy. So if I've put through a recurring PO every quarter, I can use a search and copy function, and I can filter it down based on order, and I can choose my vendor. It will bring back all the POs relating to that vendor. So I'm trying to think of one that I've done. If I have that and apply, it's fetching the data, and it will bring back every single PO that's against that, and I can do it, and I can copy from that and open it up. But what I'm going to do one from scratch and just create a new one. So I come in, I click create new, and as you can see at the top now, I've got the different companies. I can choose which company I want to put to. I come into vendor and supplier, and this is filtering on the suppliers that are against this company. Now, we've all worked with people who are binary and know every single account number off the top of their head more than anything else, but you might not. So we've done dynamic searching. So if you know the code, I can put it in. If I don't know the code, I can type in the name of the supplier. So it is dynamically searching and filtering based on what you put in. When you've done that, it will filter to the currency that is against the primary currency in GP against that supplier. But if you had access to multiple currencies, you'd be able to change the currency there, and that would be filtered on the supplier. The document date, you can change. You've got all the sort of date stuff that you have. You have a receipt by date that you can put in if you use that in GP. And then you've got your multiple companies. So if you have multiple ship to addresses, you're going to be able to go through, change the ship to address on the PO based on the addresses that you've got within your organisation in your GP system. And you've just got some header information there. The requisition creator. I'm as an admin user, so I can do it from somebody else, but that would always default to the user he's put it. And you've got this here. Now, all I've done there is fill in header information. Notes and attachments is grayed out because in reality, if you think about it, there's nothing to attach. There's no record to attach and note or attachment to. But you've got this here. Now, I'm just going to click on save because that will do two things. It will create a sequential number here in the system, but it will also then allow us to attach a note against this record and an attachment against this record. So I can go in now, click on that, and add a new attachment. So if I come in and put new attachment, backup for request, for example, and click on the file. Now I will just pick a Word doc, for example, and click save. Now, our demo system is linked to SharePoint. So I pick that from my desktop and click save. And within 3 or 4 seconds, and because I'm doing this on a webinar, obviously it's going to take a little bit longer. But what this is doing now, this is taking that file from my desktop and it's creating a link to that record within SharePoint. And the minute that attachment's gone blue, and it's gone blue within 3 or 4 seconds, that means that file has now been pushed into SharePoint and a record has been created in SharePoint. So if I click on this link to view the attachment, it's not going to my desktop anymore. It's taking me to SharePoint, and that's where the document is. And if you look, the way it's saved the document, and this is the same for any record, so whether it's a requisition, an invoice, an expense, you've got it saved as the company name, so the GP company name. You've then got a requisition number, which is a requisition number from the system. You've then got a sequential number, and then you've got the file name that's come across from my desktop. And now anybody through the approval process gets access to this link. And this is where your SharePoint security comes in. So the way SharePoint works, and this is standard functionality, and with the way we set it up via PA, that link all the way through the approval process has like a unique ID. And anybody who can access that link directly can see that record and open it. However, your SharePoint security from the side, you can see here, you get this, unique ID that nobody's ever going to be able to remember. And every file generates in the background this ID. So from an audit point of view, these are all in one folder, and they're all in our product management folder in this sort of scenario. If you do not give a user to that product management folder, those users in an organization are a bit cheeky and think, I wonder if I can delete that and see everybody's attachments. It will come up saying, no, you can't. So what that means is, from an organization, going back to this, all you need to do is give your finance team access to that SharePoint folder where all these images are attached. Because at an audit time, when the auditors say, have you got any backup to this transaction? Or if you're using it for invoices, can I see that invoice? All they'd have to do is open that SharePoint folder, search on the invoice number or the requisition number, and it will bring up every attachment relating to that document. Really quick, real simple. And we've got users using this as part of audit now. And especially because of remote audits, they've said this has been so much easier for them, that they can actually just share the screen. The auditor will say, can we please see the backup to these transactions of the invoice? And they're giving them, they're sharing them on screen, or even providing their auditors guest access purely to that SharePoint folder, so they can go and just search for them themselves and pick them up themselves and just tick the boxes as auditors like to do. That's that. But now I've got, going back to the P&E, I've got an attachment against its requisition, and I can add lines. So I come in, I click on the plus. If it's a GL account, I can add a GL account. If you use items, it will filter on items. So the GL accounts are all there. Again, if I put, conference, it will filter based on the GL account number. It will filter based on the GL description that is against that. But if I now put that to items, home items, I can order P&E for GP item. But I'm going to overtype the description. I'm going to put webinar 25/11/21. And again, because you're using the item, your unit of measures will come across from GP. If you had a rate, a cost rate, a purchase price assigned to the item, it would populate. But I'm going to put in quantity 50 and the price of £2.50. VAT rates, if you have them assigned to the item and the supplier, again, that all comes across, but your VAT rates are based on what VAT rate you've got in the system. It works out, and I can save. Now, you might have, or you just add lines. If you want to go on, you can have multiple lines in, whatever, however you want to build that PR request. So I've done it now, I've got the attachment, that's one line PR. When I'm happy as a creator to send that, I submit. On the click of that submit button, this is now doing 2 or 3 things. So it's saying, right, okay, that's been done. Kicking a workflow, who is the first approver? Who is temp users approver? So if I just click onto my emails, and you can see the other demo systems, but the one that's just come through now, I've got an email from P&E. It's actually from Spencer who built the app from our point of view, but that will come through for organisations from purchasing expense management or whatever you wanted it wording, saying, yeah, Dan, you've got a requisition that needs your approval, and there's a link to open P&E. So I'll come back here and I'm just going to use the same system. I'll log in as Dan Booth. This is my home page now. So I've got 2 requisitions to approve. I can click on that. Because I've got access to multiple companies, they're all listed here. So if you can, in reality, users might only go in once a day. They're going to have a number of different things to approve. But they can come in here. I've got 2 things to approve. And they are listed here. So I've got 1 from previously. I can ignore it, but this is the one I'm going to push through. So as an approver, I can see there's an attachment because the paperclip's coloured in. I can click on the attachment. Again, the SharePoint link will open up. And I'm looking at this. Now I'm thinking, I don't like the look at that. I might want to reject it. If I click on the reject button, it forces me to enter a rejection reason. which appears on an email back to the creator saying your requisition has been rejected and this is the reason why, and it just copies whatever's put in that box. You have to put something in that box. Obviously, for demo purposes, I'm not going to reject. I want to see this in GP. But what we've also got is the ability, and this ability goes through all the transaction types, so that actually, anything that's in blue, I can amend if I really wanted to as part of the approval process. So maybe not as much on items, but on a GL account, somebody might have chosen the wrong GL account. And goes back to it on expenses, somebody might have put the wrong VAT rate. I can amend these screens here. When I'm happy with it, click on the green tick on here. And what that does is then put a green tick at the left-hand side. So I now can work down any ones in the list that I want to work down and submit. You can ignore, like I said before, you can have a mixture of approvals, rejections, and just work down. And then at the very end, when you've done when you're ready to do, you've got this submit selection button. So if I click on submit selection now, I'm happy that that's the one that needs approving. And come back. We now have a workflow that's kicking in. So now this is where the workflows get a bit more complicated. So it's saying, okay, this transaction's been approved. Can Dan Booth, as an approver, approve that value? Is that in his approval limit? Yes or no? The answer is no. It will go to the next person up the chain for approval. So bearing in mind, if you have something off for £5 million and you've got 8 people up somebody's approval chain, that's got to go up each individual person for approval. So that's great, and it's doing that. It's then saying, as part of the next step, it's saying, actually then, okay, so if Dan can approve that level and that's under his limit, is there a finance approval step on? Yes or no? And if you remember from the start, we said no finance approval on purchases, but on expenses. So when that is saying, okay, well, it doesn't need a finance approval step, the system is now saying, okay, I go away and create that transaction in GP. So now if I go to requisitions, you can see it's at fully approved status. So what that's doing now, it sits at fully approved status and then goes away and create the workflow kicks in and says, right, go and create that document in GP. So I'm just waiting for that to sort of move on. But whilst I do, if I go into GP and go to put the purchase order entry screen and just search on the POs. There's the one now, PO 1111, 150 quid. And if I open that, you can see in GP that's created the purchase order, given it that reference number, it's carried across the wording that I overtyped on there, and that is in GP right now as an open purchase order. Very quick, very simple, and pushes that data through to GP. What also the system is doing is, in a second, it's done it now, it's wrote that across and put that ERP order number into the app. So it's pushed the data to GP, completed it all. On successful completion, it's published back to the app what the ERP order number is. And the email has come through to the person who's created it saying the requisition has been approved and the purchase order number to what the supplier is at. So that completes the loop on all the workflows, creating and going back to the creator with the final, this is what you've got, it's been done, and that's in the system. Really good, really simple, and without touching GP to get that data into GP. That's requisition. So quickly, if we go through invoices, very much the same process really, but there's only one slight difference. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to choose a different supplier, giant screen at MP. And it's only the different fields that you would imagine you would see on an invoice. So you get a vendor invoice number. So if I put in 10, 35, 25, 11, 2021. Our system on invoices assumes that you've got a centralized AP team. So you need to go, so if this invoice is for rent, that might go to your finance person, to your finance manager. If it's for IT equipment, to your IT director. So you would choose a first approver. We're finding some organisations now mean that when an invoice comes in, they're actually giving it to their IT team and saying, you enter it in, you send it to your first approver, and I'll put a finance approval step on the end to make sure you've coded it up right and amend it if you haven't. But you've got different options depending on. So again, roughly the same screen. If I click on save, it generates a sequential invoice number. For those who've worked in finance for ages, like your old stamp number that you used to stamp on an invoice, your attachments come up. But now I can put like invoice 10, 35, 25, 11, 21, and I can choose, that's an invoice, click on save. So now within this approval process, I can attach a copy of the invoice. So if I open that attachment, it does exactly the same as what it was doing before. You see the transaction, it's come up with a reference number that's all over the shop, but the invoice is attached. So if I submit that for approval, no, I didn't put any items on it, shouldn't have done that. Please ignore what I've just done there. That's me clicking away too happily. Let me just quickly put through and I'll do it properly. I won't do an attachment, you can see how they are, but maybe, you know, that's going to a geo account and that's going to company events, for example, company events, invoice process. And that might be for £200 plus VAT. The one thing that we do on invoices is obviously you've got those suppliers which we're all annoyed about whose VAT, we can amend the VAT amount screen on your invoices, so that might be 39, what you get sometimes. Click save, and I'll submit this one without the attachment. And again, you get the same level of invoice. So as an approver, I've got, and it's that quick, I've got an invoice to approve. If I come into here, invoices to approve. I've probably got two, one at 0 value, but I can go into here. And again, this is where now, as if I'm a finance person through the approval process, I can change the account, click on approve, submit selection. And that's doing the same process as what it did before now. So that is saying, is there an approval routine? Can I approve it? Is there a finance approval step on? All that sort of level of transaction. And once that's done, that is now saying, okay, is this at a point where I can process this transaction into GP? Yes, it is. Brilliant. I'll go and create a transaction. The person who created it has now got, this has now been fully approved. So now if I go to GP, and I hope I'm not doing this too quickly, in reality, generally, you know, you're gonna have a little bit of a delay. But if I go to receiving transactions entry, do my search on here, there it is at the bottom. It's just in the middle of coming through. So give me a sec. I've got the description, invoice process, I've got the value, I've got the £39.99. It's there. So you just got to post it. And it comes through with this batch ID, ERP, PRCT. Again, everything's there. You've got the creditor dot that I put in, the date. It's exactly what you'd want it to look like and see. But it only entering GP when it's approved, fully approved. Moving on to expenses, and I think this is a really good one just to show the different things we can do on expenses. Click on expenses, and the data entry screens are exactly, you know, they're very, very similar. But you might have somebody who's just an expense user. So if I click on create now, if you remember, in fact, let me just do this as me. If you remember when I came in, when we're looking at the admin screen, you can see the vendor ID, you link it in admin, so that's already there, the currency is already there, your document dates. And we were using these things called friendly expense categories. So I can come in, choose an expense that might have been an expense from the 1st of November. And now instead of getting the whole GL account, I get the category. So we have just 3 for demoing with the expense limits as per my organisational limit. So if I say meals, finance department, and I say meal out with friends, not that you would claim that back, but you know what I mean. And I put that through. If there was a limit against that 25 quid, if I put that through for 50, I get this, ooh, exceeding the limit. Doesn't stop me processing it, but it will flag through the approval process that something is over a limit. So if I put that through for 130 and say, well, actually, I'm not going to put that on that. Put that through as not that because I didn't really. Save that line. Now, again, you can see there it's got a transaction against it, says it's over. If I wanted to save that, I can attach any receipts I've got through the approval process, through that, and any backup. If we were doing it for mileage, because some of our customers have mileage, so that date might be today's mileage. If I choose this for a mileage thing, 2 new boxes open up saying, you know, I can put mileage home to office. And that's from BB10 to SK6. You make these 2 boxes open up for postcode. And then I can assign the rate through the background of the system is assigned. So maybe that's 37 miles, 0 that, and save. So now I've got all this sort of information building up in the expense claim. If I click on submit, I get a compliance statement. Goes through the process all the way through, you know, and that can be managed to be whatever you want it to be. Click continue. And now that's going through the same approval processes as what the expense approval hierarchy is in your organization. So managers got an email saying they've got this. Now, what I want to show very quickly, and I'm slightly worried about time, but if I go into expenses to approve, it's set through. So this one will be working through the system. That's the one I've just put through now. I'm just going to approve it and submit. This had a finance approval step on it. So if you remember from the start, we said for expenses, finance approval step. So now I have, and that could be one person or a group of people. So I have this now as Dan Booth. If I go into expenses to approve, Dan Booth is a finance approver. And you can see here, the ones, because you could be a manager and a finance approver, you can see here the ones that are finance approvals say finance. So as a finance approver, you can click on this approvals box here and see who has approved that previously as part of your approval routine. But going back to it, I can say now this 130 quid got 0 VAT on. That doesn't sound right. That, you know, that should be. I've seen the receipt and thinking, no, that isn't right. That should be for £110. The VAT should be 20%, and that should be 20. And I can save that. So going back to it now, and these values, it's still over the limit, but the values have changed. The total net amount is still the same, but I can change that at that point. Click approve, submit selection. And that is now, again, you've done that, you've just done it from a finance point of view. That is going to go through the process. It's now going to create that document in GP as a invoice. And again, I hope I've not done this too quick. Still to come through, give it a second. You can see I've got one there previously. It's a slightly different batch name. It's got PM instead of receipt. But if I go into that one just to see which one, you've got stationery, it's got the values on, you've got all that. So it's coming across as you would expect it to come across as an invoice. Let's see if that's created. Yeah, the workflows in reality do take a little while, but also in the real world, you're not going to be sat there clicking the button, approving it, processing it, and waiting for it as well. But it comes across seamlessly into GP once the workflow kicks in. There it is. Yeah, it's not a massive delay at all. With the meal out with friends, a mileage to office, you've got the different values, you've got the tax, you've got everything you need all into GP. And finally, the other module that we have is credit cards. Now, this does line level approvals. So it works slightly differently. This works where you have to have a vendor account. It comes across as an invoice. So you might have this as, I'll use OT, but that could be Barclays card. You put in a statement number, and you could have 5 or 6 ones. You post the cash there, and we can import it from Excel. So click on the file, select a file, put an import in. Basic import, charges or refunds, the line description, the total amount, because obviously you don't get the sort of breakdown between net and VAT. Click on insert, and at line level, you go in, you assign a GL account, and you'd assign a VAT rate, and the system would work out VATable, it'd work out the net from that, and always do reconciliation. But this now you could do to line level approval. So you might have one credit card with a number of different people who need to approve. You attach all the documents, it sends out line level approvals. So, the approvers would only see the lines relating to them, and the transaction would only fully integrate to GP once every line has been approved through the approval process. Again, it's auditable, it's just ticking a box regards to getting that approval routine right. But a lot of our customers, especially not-for-profit customers, really struggle with credit card approvals. People who have a credit card per individual actually are now using this module and getting the individual to fill in this and just save it as they do a spend, then submit it for approval and have a finance approval step on. Submit it to themselves, have a finance approval step on so they can check the coding and then it posts as well. So lots of good options. And then at the end, we've got, finally, just to close off the loop, we've got our Power BI reporting pack for the analytics. So we have here requisitions. You can fully see by company, by transaction level, with approved by, analytics by vendor, by cost type. But we can see at any point, I want to see who's awaiting approval. Well, there's one in there. This is who it is. So who's that with? Well, current approval is Dan Booth. Why is that sat with? You can go, you've got values in, you've got all that information. For invoices, and this goes back to what I said before, every single invoice in the system here, I can see process to ERP, I can see what's awaiting approval, I can see what's saved. So for an example now, at a month end, I said earlier about customers using this as an invoice, so it's a register. If I filter here on awaiting approval and saved, I get this nice box here with the invoice number, the supplier, nominal account, the values. And this is at line level. So that's if these are multiple lines on that invoice, you'd see every line. Because it's Power BI, because you're going back to the Microsoft, everything's in that loop. I can click on the 3 dots and export data. And if I just save that file to my desktop, very quickly go into desktop, click on data and open this in Excel. And we can move columns around to match whatever your inputs are, but now I've got extremely quickly at a month end, supplier, who the approver is, what the invoice number is, the vendor invoice number, the nominal account, and that could be used to push that data as an accrual into GP very, very quickly. We have the same for expenses, so expenses by date, by employee, by cost type. If they were your categories, we can just have that filtered to your categories, so you can do analysis on that. Obviously, because of time, I'm not going to refresh it, but generally takes a minute and a half to refresh. But for those using mileage claims, we have a full mileage claim analysis, so that when an employee comes up to you to do their P11D, P87D, whichever one it is, you can say to them, in that period, you've done this amount of miles, and these are the journeys you've done. You can export that for them. You can provide that information for them really, really quickly. And we have one on credit cards. So this one comes in really handy because, as I mentioned before, your credit cards only integrate to GP when every line has been fully approved. So if I look at a credit card status display saying awaiting approval, these are your credit card numbers here. And you can see here at line level, well, actually, every line's been approved apart from this. And go to the individual and say, please approve that because I need this transaction in the system. So you do have that level of analytics. And we have to provide this because obviously, as I said before, we are only pushing fully approved transactions into GP. So to wrap up, I appreciate that's been quite I really like getting every element across because some customers are really interested in purchase ordering and implementing that. Some customers really want to just use it for purchase invoice approvals and don't want a purchase order. And a lot of customers like the fact that the friendly expense category is so easy to use and so easy to use for non-financial users. So I do want to show a lot of the products. So I do apologise for it being a bit whistle stop, but hopefully that's giving you a flavour of each module. But in summary, I've demoed on the mobile. We can do that, and for expenses especially, we use purchase and expense management in m-hance. You use it on your phone. You attach the documents. You've got it. You can build it up for a month and you submit. So good. You're getting all the benefits of cloud-based technology, and especially what's gone on, as I say, in the last 18, 24 months. Really handy to be able to do stuff and approve stuff, paperless process. You've got one source of data entry, so you've seen there, you're not having to manage two systems really. You key the transaction on, you do the approval, the seamless integration into GP, ready for somebody in GP to post the transactions if they're happy with that action. And because of that, the analytics, the in-progress transactions are all held within the app. So you can do, and that's why we provided the Power BI report to the analytics. You see there. And compared to a lot of our competitors, this is a quick implementation because we're pulling data from GP. We understand GP. We're using Power App Microsoft technology, so it should understand Microsoft-based data and does. It's not a long and drawn-out process, and we can have these up and running. There's not even a case where you have to have any downtime. The implementation from you guys, as I said at the very start, is mainly around your users and your approval hierarchy. And it is an ever-evolving product as well. So we're happy to take feedback, and this is why I like saying about the contact slide at the end. If there's something in there that you think, oh no, we should do that with GP data, let me know. Even if you think, I don't want it yet, but if it had that, I want it. Please let us know, because this is an ever-evolving product. We've refined the product. We've added information in based on feedback from initial customers as well. So please, if there's something stopping you from buying this product, let us know, because if the data is something in GP, we should be able to get that on our product roadmap. If you're asking for us to rewrite everything, that might be a different sort of conversation. But if there's something stopping you from buying it, please let us know. Any feedback with regards to this product is gratefully received from myself and others as a product team here at m-hance. And with that, that's the end. So as I promised at the start, please, any feedback at all with regards to any questions you have, please contact me. My email address is there, daniel.booth@m-hance.com. Feel free to speak to your account managers if you've got one assigned, or anybody that you're dealing with. You can even email our generic sale@m-hance.com. There's more information on our products through either our m-hance website, our dedicated NFP website, and we are running some more events. And if you're thinking about potentially upgrading to Business Central, we have a P&E product for Business Central as well. There's a webinar on that in a couple of weeks that I'll be running. So please have a look at our events page as well, with events for the rest of this year and into next. As I say again, please don't hesitate to contact me. But thank you very much for your time this morning. Please all stay safe, and I'm not going to say Merry Christmas. It's not December yet, but yeah. Please stay safe, and hopefully speak to you all soon. Thank you very much.